I would love to go to therapy if there was a therapist who I believe could keep up with me. I have accomplished things in my life. Have you? And you're going to tell me that I need to do these things. Well, hold on now. I have a family that depends on me.
Men, what do you think about men not liking to go to therapy?
Well, so the problem is what's happened to therapy. So the issue is under the age of 30, only 5% of therapists are men. And I believe what's happened is therapy has become a way to transpose, in some ways, woke ideology to men. It is terrible. I don't give a this concept of men being more vulnerable in the beginning of a relationship is bullshit, and it is bad game. And if a therapist is telling you to do this, stop listening. Therapists who go after Jonah Hill saying that his behavior was controlling when he's like, he goes, hey, you're a beautiful person and you're incredible and you're smart and I love all these things about you. And if you want to spend all your time with these other people, he goes, I support that, but maybe we're not right for each other. And that was controlling therapy. If that's what therapy is, therapy. Now, the thing is, there are some really good therapists out there, but for me, I would have to find someone who's kind of in the same cohort as me, either prior military or even like a girl who understands like the scene or something that can, somebody who can kind of understand my ideology. Because I will tell you, there's a very big difference between a guy just living his life being 46 and a dude with testosterone over 1100 who's 46. Like, it's a very different existence.
Can confirm.
And I would need to know that the person that I have as a therapist is not going to. I've heard horror stories from guys going to therapy and they're being judged by their therapist. It's like, no, you're dating multiple women at once. It's because you're a narcissist. That's why you're doing. It's like, what the is it? Like, that's what I'm talking about, right? You have, as a man, there's a period in your life if you want to date multiple women, you can. And there's a period of life if you want to settle down, you can, and you shouldn't be guilted for not wanting to do one thing or the other. So what I found is that therapy tends to be more, every instance that I've heard of, it tends to be more like the feminization of men. And so that's the reason why I think a lot of men are complaining. What do you think, Rob?
Okay, so here's my deal. To tag on what he was saying is that the way we do psychology right now, the way we do therapy is it begins and ends from the female experience. The reason why guys are supposed to go to therapy in the first place is to get in touch with their feelings and to be more vulnerable. And I mean, we can run down this laundry list of like, this is what you ought to do. At the bottom of that list, it's the equation reads out to be more like a woman. That's what it comes to. Emote like a woman, talk like a woman, communicate like a woman, experience life like a woman. Everything else goes along. And the problem we have with this is because we don't understand today that men and women are different. And we are fundamentally, biologically, neurologically, endocrinology, in so many different ways, right down to the cellular level. Men and women are different. Our brains are, and I can show you the fMRI studies of these. Our brains are literally wired differently. So just because he didn't cry at the end of Titanic doesn't mean he's emotionally stunted. Okay, he might cry at the end of Saving Private Ryan, but he's not going to. He's not going to cry when Rose drops the heart of the sea down to the bottom of the ocean.
Because it was stupid. She could have let Leonardo DiCaprio on the goddamn piece of plank. I mean, it was so dumb. You could see it. It was like right there. Just let him up on the motherfucker.
So,
Selfish ass mother.
What I hear though from the reason why I hear like you people ask this all the time, like, I think that a lot of women think that therapy is in some way like makes the guy more attractive. And so guys go, oh, okay, I'll go to therapy. I'll out therapy all my competition, my intersexual competition. And so therefore I'm going to be the most therapeutic. I'm going to be the most female identifying, the most emotive. And the problem with that is men, when they get into that state, it feels unnatural to them. So when women talk with other women and communicate with other women, they are doing so from the female experience. And the problem is we still think in terms of blank slate. We think men and women are just the same. So what works for a woman in our wonderfully correct female society and female correctness should theoretically work for a guy. Men, and then guys are just like, screw it, I'm going to go gun down, I'm going to express myself with an AK-47, right? Yeah. That's pretty much what it comes down to. He's expressing his emotions, it's just with an assault weapon.
So what does male therapy look like?
I think male therapy is called being a performance coach.
I think squat rack is what it looks like.
For sure.
Yeah. So let me see if I can answer that a little bit, because I was actually talking about this today. When guys help other guys, it's usually because there's a project involved. The best conversations I've ever had with my brother have been about my brother reconditions and sells like auctions, classic muscle cars and classic cars at like Barrett Jackson and ESPN stuff. And so the best conversations I've ever had with him is like working on a carburetor. Like we're over, or we're doing something. We're
Yes.
fishing. There's something that's happening. Like there's a project that's going on, and it's an excuse to get there. And you're focusing on something. And so once your brain is sort of like in the deductive problem solving mode, that's when we have the best conversations. For women, it's like, let's go to Starbucks and catch up. It's the actual conversation that is enjoyable. Where for guys, it's let's solve a problem together, and in doing so, we're going to be teamwork. We're going to form a tribe. We're going to have some. That's the kind of therapy that guys really need. And that's, unfortunately, we, in this society, in this day and age, we try to atomize men and isolate them. So when a guy goes through a divorce or something like that, he is like on his own. Whereas for women, they do better after a divorce because they have all these social networks, because they've always done that. And they can't understand why that guy feels like he's suicidal right after a marriage or getting zeroed out, because none of his guy friends, they're all atomized too, and they're all isolated on top of that. So getting together and going and doing things, and then saying, hey, Jerry really needs a support group, so let's start let's go down to the Starbucks and have a talk with him. That sounds like something that would do. It doesn't sound like hey, let's go to the gym, or let's go fishing, or let's go have a dude's trip somewhere and do something. I don't know, whatever you like. Go to the gun range. I don't care what it is. Do something that you all enjoy together, and through doing that, you will have those conversations, and that's how guys connect.
But it's not much
Well,
different.
Jessica, you had something you want to say?
Yeah. So
Talking to the mic.
therapy like that is, I think, generalized, but I think there's deeper problems and there's deeper rooted things that people have to work through, whether men or women.
So if we're dealing with somebody who is psychotic and they go to a psychiatrist, then I agree with you.
So
I agree with you.
Clinical.
Childhood trauma, sexual trauma, abandonment,
For sure.
Generational trauma.
children dying.
Of course.
There's things like that people really, men and women, do need to talk to somebody that can help guide them on a path for healing. Otherwise, they're going to come up with blocks in their life, right? Like mental blocks, and they're not going to be able to move forward or push through it without direction.
Yes. The difference is, I think there's a lot of men who have those mental blocks who go to Marine Corps boot camp or go to the gym, and then the mental blocks go away. That's the difference. There's a lot of these guys who have these blocks, and then all of a sudden they become successful, and a lot of the blocks go away. I'm not saying therapy is unnecessary. I'm just saying the way it's used for men is incorrect. They're taking the tool that they use for women, and then they're applying the same tool to the male psyche, not admitting that the male psyche is different from the female psyche. Sure. Again, a male therapist is called a performance coach. A male therapist is called a personal trainer. A male therapist is called an offensive coordinator. That's what a male therapist is. Okay? Personally, a male therapist to me is Andrew Huberman and Lex Friedman. A male therapist is somebody like that, who's
your martial arts instructor.
For sure. Whenever I have conversations with like Myron Gaines or Justin Waller or whatever, when we're talking about business and accomplishing a goal, we all light up. Everyone at the table stops what they're doing. We light up because there's a goal that is going to be accomplished. I could just like literally feel like my ancestors' genetics being like, let's work together. You come from this angle. I'm going to come from this angle. We're going to kill this goddamn elephant. Right, like we're going to work together. No, it's not just conquerors. The teamwork. It's like watching
solving problems.
It's like it's like watching the '87 Lakers, just Showtime Lakers. Like watching them teamwork up the court, just throwing the ball. Watching Jerry Rice and Joe Montana teamwork,
building
like watching
things collectively.
Correct.
Yes.
Like watching that teamwork. Watching Stockton Malone. Those things like that we admire so much as men. Men working together to accomplish the goal, and accomplishing that goal, defeating another group of men. You'd think that would exist somewhere in our ancestral past, and you look at our ancestral past, and that's all it was. Because there are no more Neanderthals. You guys wonder what happened to them? Fucking ate them and outbred them. There are no more there's no Australopithecus, there's no Homo habilis, there's no Homo australis.
Yes.
There were 15 breeds, there are 15 species of hominids on this planet, and now there's one.
Murder ape.
There's just this hairless murder ape called Homo sapiens sapiens is the only one left. We've been around for 200,000 years, and we killed all the other ones because we competed with we joined bands of other Homo sapiens to kill the other bands of whatever. The leopards that lived over here or the Homo habilis that lived over here.
The chat is in rare form today. I just got the little elephant emoji and an L.
Elephant took the L.
So the answer is basically be like Michael.
No, definitely not Ben.
No, but I will say this
Go do push-ups.
I think that if we're ever going to have any kind of like effective male therapy, it has to take into account the male experience as something that is separate and set apart from the female experience, because that's where we get into trouble with so many things, and not just therapy.
Because I've had so many male friends tell me like, I don't want to go to therapy, like that stuff. Like I don't
there's
believe
a stigma
in that.
around it.
I would love to go to therapy if there was a therapist who I believe could keep up with me.
Yeah.
Like I think, like I have accomplished things in my life. Have you? And you're going to tell me that I need to do these things. Well, hold on now. I have a family that depends on me. Are you sure when you say these things that what I'm doing is unhealthy? Tom Sosnoff is one of the most successful guys I know. A guy's a billionaire. He's like, you know what vacation is? I don't. I haven't taken one in 25 years.
Yeah.
I work 7 days a week and I love it. I don't ever not want to work, and I have billions of dollars, and my family is set up for life, and I'm happier than it. That's some people that they're just built like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so is a therapist going to grasp that? Or is the therapist going to go and get a liberal arts degree or get a degree in psychology, right? A soft science of psychology. And then when they do so, like you bring up, well, evolutionary psychology said this, and they think that's hokum because they believe in B.F. Skinner rather than David Buss. And they sit there and they start giving you all these ideas based on things that they theorize that they believe are healthy. But and then they completely ignore the fact that we are hairless murder apes. Now, you have to take that into I want a therapist who takes that into account. And if they can't do that, then I just don't want that person to be a therapist. Now, if you give me a business coach, yes, I'll take that. I'll sit here and listen to Neil Patel talk about how much he works, or I'll talk to Ryan Panetta about how much he works, or Dan Bilzerian, or Ty Lopez, or any of these people. I look at their lives and I'm like, yeah, I want some of that. I want a tenth of that. I want 100th of that. I would be rich beyond my wildest dreams if I had that. I would have so fewer things to worry about. And his son Ike could go to any college in the world without question, and I would have no question. What, you want to go to Oxford and then go get a PhD from Harvard? I'll pay for it, no problem whatsoever. That's the life I want. And so when that's the case, no therapist is going to tell me that's unhealthy. That's my issue.
Yeah,
I have to understand my burden of performance.
But you're trying to hide, cover up all your problems with money?
No. But I
need.
Then
where's your therapy?
The therapy would be, yes, still with the therapy, the things dealing with approval from your father, and those things are still real, but you must also acknowledge the burden of performance that men have that women don't have. What I'm saying is there's several different boxes to check, 10 boxes. I only talked about one of the boxes, which is my burden of performance as a man. If I have a therapist who cannot recognize the burden of performance because they have a salary job where they don't make more money because they work harder, then I can't go to that therapist. It doesn't mean that he's like, hey, this issue that you're having has to do with passive aggressive behavior or whatever. You're suffering from psychosis or whatever. There's still secondary issues a therapist can deal with, but the minimum requirement is they must recognize that I am a man who has to deal with performance. If they don't do that, then I can't go to them as a therapist. Does that make sense? It's just the minimum requirement.
What is the difference between a mentor and a therapist for you? Because it sounds like you're expecting a therapist to be like a mentor. That's the way I perceive it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're the same thing in my opinion.
Yeah,
but I think he's saying as a man, that's kind of like, this conversation highlights the difference where for us, all the men have agreed that for us, our therapy would be making progress towards an achievement, and that would be therapeutic for us. Then all the girls don't agree.
A good therapist isn't someone that's going to tell you what to do or tell you that you're wrong or tell you to be this way or you're a narcissist, you're this, you're that, you're this. It's to help you learn how to work out the problem for yourself.
Beautiful.
Correct.
So when I go on TikTok and I look at the most popular therapists, you know what I see? People telling me that I'm wrong. People telling me that we're toxic.
That's not real therapy.
That's
I
correct.
agree.
It's not
I
real
understand
therapy.
what you're saying, but when they get 750,000 likes, do you know what other therapists start doing? They start following that. This idea that therapy is not being pushed in that direction, you're being naive. Yeah, the other thing is I have people that are mentors when it comes to business, and then they'll ask me questions about like emotional stuff. Like, so I don't think mentoring and therapy are the same thing. If I have a mentor who's teaching me literally how to code in Python to build something, that has nothing to do with my emotional state whatsoever.
Kylie. So let me just say, for sake of argument, okay, if I was your therapist or I was some psychologist, a clinical psychologist that you came to me and you said, I'm having trouble with sorting out my emotions and my feelings and everything, and I went, go and take a lap. Go lift heavier weights, right? If I told you something like that, that was my therapy for you to go get in the squat rack. If I were to say something like stop being a little pussy and go and take another lap and do all that stuff, if that was therapy, would that be therapy to you for your problem? Well,
so this idea that it's just a terrible idea is wrong.
You're going to treat bipolar disorder, and you're going to treat actual clinical psychosis in a much different way than just like therapy, like something happened, a crisis in my life.
I'm depressed right now because I have no gratitude is different from clinical psychosis. Those are two different things.
And a lot of people nowadays don't know the difference between just having like a sad day, bad day, being sad, and actually being depressed.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like whenever I do like personal counseling, like one-on-one counseling, I have a list of policies. I very, very specific about that. And one article in there is I reserve the right to like refer you to a clinical, somebody who actually has a degree in this. You can come to me. I will give you an analysis of what I see going on with you, but I am not a doctor. I'm no play one on the internet, and I am not a licensed clinical therapist. But if you want my take on your, I will analyze your situation. But if this guy says, yeah, I clinically have autism or something like that, I'm going to go, well, I'm not the guy you need to talk to. You need to talk to a professional who deals with autistic,
yeah,
problems.
And that's respectable that you acknowledge that and that you're aware of that.
Yeah, but that guy needs psychiatry. He needs that, but it's different from the therapy you're referring to.
Yeah, I can't.
A psychiatrist
prescribe Adderall
a psychiatrist has an MD. Like what you're referring to is somebody who has a licensed therapist who doesn't even have a bachelor's degree. Like we're talking about something completely different. Yes, correct. Like a counselor for sure. And those people are necessary, and I totally understand them. And I wish we had more of them in the U.S. military because people committed suicide a lot in the U.S. military. I totally understand that. But my point is, what's happened is there needs to be what he's saying, because there's been some massive extrapolation here. We're not saying therapy is garbage. We're saying a therapist who is going to be useful to a man must recognize a man is different and must recognize the real world that men live in, where we are regarded based on our performance, no matter how special our mommy tells us we are. Okay? That's the issue. And because there's so little of that, telling men you're depressed because you lost your job, it's because you sucked at your job, bro. That's what they actually need to hear.
Right. And
unfortunately, that's not if the therapist was like, no, we need to deal with your feelings. It's like, but that's not going to fix the fact that he still lives in a world as a man where he will never find someone to date or have any status amongst his friends unless he performs. Yeah. We as men must perform and never forget that. And when we do, if we have a therapist who does not recognize that, it's not a good therapist for us. And what I'm saying is a lot of therapists for females don't see that same burden, and therefore they don't give the right advice. Pat, did you want to say something?
They don't have to perform. No, I feel like psychedelic can be my male therapy. Maybe air it all out with a stripper or something like that. But I don't get a lot of response. It's like one directional to where you can just kind of let it out. That's like my male therapy. I just feel like going to a therapist, it does feel very insulting and like you're wrong.
You're not feeling the way that you should feel.
You need to.
But I get what the lady's saying. I think to understand us better, we're saying if you do have trauma, then it definitely is good to go to a therapist. If you have childhood trauma or something traumatic happened to you.
I'm surprised at how deep this conversation
was. I know,
right? It's just a throwaway question.
Why don't guys do believe in therapy?
That'd be great.
I think that's what a lot of guys. I'll definitely speak for myself. But like, if you have trauma, if you have trauma, then get therapy. But outside of trauma, if you're sad because you lost your job, or as a man, if you're sad outside than trauma, it's usually something in your control, and it's because you're not performing to your full capabilities. So whenever I felt a little bit down, I always reanalyze my goals, because usually I'm pretty happy all the time. But if I am feeling like down or anything like that, it's usually I'm going to have a goal that I'm focused on. I might not be.
So what Sartain is telling you is that most of men's problems are performance-related issues.
Yeah, sorry. That's what you want to hear.
But I'm big for
this never happened.
It's never happened before.
Honestly, a lot of what happened in childhood trauma is what holds people back today, because as a child, you can't really interpret the situation, so you give it more weight than it should.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a therapy landmark. Actually, I did that. It's called your ACT.
Yes.
So something happened to you as a child, and you created a defense mechanism. Then you overuse that later on. So it's kind of like, it's not a bad thing or a good thing. But if you use a hammer for everything, it's not the ideal tool.
Yeah.
So like one lady mentioned when she was a little girl, she wanted to play with her little sisters. They gave her the Indian burns, and she couldn't understand why people so close to her would hurt her. So then for the rest of her life, that was her ACT. Whenever someone got close to me, I would push them away. So if you go to therapy to resolve something like that, I think it makes huge strides in your life. But for outside of trauma, for a man, the best therapy for a man that got dumped, lost a job, etc., is take control.
Quit being a bitch.
And a good way to take control is to set a goal and make progress on that and see that visual.
It's like if you don't do that, you're not useful to yourself and you're not useful to the world.
Yes. Right.
And like I just keep expressing this to guys, and I will never stop expressing this. We as men, our usefulness to the world is how our status is based. Our competency, our relevancy, our access to scarce resources, our intellect, our ability to network with other people. That is why people want to be around us. It is not because we're special snowflake.
Just because you're special does not make you useful.
And if you want to learn how to do these things, join MOA.
What's that? What's MOA? I don't even know what that is.
Yeah,